Alright guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so I didn't make a video on Sunday like I thought I was going to. A lot of stuff has been happening. Been having a very busy schedule. But now that I'm free, I'm able to talk about the stuff that's been going on in the UFC. Alright, obviously you guys have known Rob Font ended up beating Cody Garbrandt. Spectacular win for Rob Font. Right now Rob Font is holding himself right now in contention for a title, but this video is not going to be about Rob Font or Cody Garbrandt or that card itself. All right, great fights in that card. Carlos Barza versus Yang Janan. The debut of Chris Barnett, which ended up coming in failure, but we're not going to really talk all about that stuff. We're going to end up talking about the fact of what ended up getting announced this week. We got announced a fight with Nico Price. All right. Nico Price versus fan favorite Michelle Pieta. Honestly, this fight rules. I love it. But it's also a bigger fight. I believe it's the week after. No, it should be. It's the week after. I got to double check the date. Yeah, it's the week after, yeah. Max Holloway versus La Pandera, Yair Rodriguez. God, I cannot wait for that fight. We have also, the UFC announced that Sean Brady versus Kevin Lee. The return of Kevin Lee. Yes, Kevin Lee is making his debut at welterweight. All right, so we have a lot to talk about, all right? But without further ado, I'm going to talk about the fight of Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez. Now, this has a lot of stuff at stake because it just seems like Max Holloway is taking this fight so he can remain active, so he's not sitting on the shelf, for X amount of time. Reason being is because of the fact that there was supposed to be a featherweight title fight with Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega, all right? Volkanovski, the champ, beat Max Holloway twice, all right, back in December of 2019, and then obviously last year in International Fight Week to defend his title. And Ortega has also fought Holloway, right, and lost viciously in that. I believe that fight was taking place in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. And Max Holloway just gave him a beating, a real beatdown, okay? And that fight was supposed to, Volkanovski versus Ortega was supposed to be taking place March for UFC 260, but Volkanovski ended up testing positive for COVID-19. So that fight was suspended, was actually canceled, and they had to make a makeup date. So the makeup date was to be determined as of right now. But the UFC made a solution. Hey, why don't we use both these fighters to do the comeback of the Ultimate Fighter for TUF? And ideally, I wasn't really too appeased for having Volkanovski. Volkanovski. He's not more of that raw type of guy. Neither is Brian Ortega. But I'm very interested to see how that fight is going to come along. I'm very interested to see TUF. By the way, TUF is going to be coming up this Tuesday, June 1st. All right. A day after Memorial Day. So very interested to see how this is going to transpire. Is it going to be something that we're going to look forward to watching when both these fighters face one another later on in this year, whether it's August, September, whatever, October? Or is it something that, we're just like, we kind of expected this type of stuff and we're just not really feeling it. So, getting back to Max Holloway, because this is all leads up to him, Max Holloway ended up having a fight in January against Calvin Kattar. Pure beatdown, right? I honestly think it was a worse beatdown than what he gave to Ortega. Now, Ortega, that was bad, right? The fight was stopped. But Kattar, ate so much damage. I mean, I honestly felt like the ref should have stopped the fight, Herb Dean. I know there was moments where Kattar was defending himself, but it was just like he ate so many punches. He was so battered down that it just wasn't worth it for him to continue all 5 rounds. And I think Max Holloway shattered his record for most significant strikes. And, he was sitting on the shelf, hoping that, he's going to get a title fight. But with the whole situation with Volkanovski and Ortega already had next, and he had already signed that bout agreement, well, Ortega does get that right to, face Volkanovski. So this brings us to Max Holloway, avoiding for him to be off on the shelf for such a long period of time. Last time he fought was in January. That was actually the first card of 2021. He is fighting the week after International Fight Week. He is fighting on July 17th against Yair Rodriguez, who's also hasn't been very active himself. I think last time we ended up seeing him fight was back in 2019 on that Boston fight card when he ended up fighting Jeremy Stevens, which he ended up winning. So this has a lot of high stakes. I mean, Yair can definitely put himself into title contention if he's able to pull off the upset against Max Holloway. And then Max Holloway, if he just does another beatdown onto Yair, right? I don't think these two never fought each other. But I'm saying if he's able to, replicate the same type of performance that he ended up doing to Ortega, to Cater, and he's able to do that on Yair Rodriguez, there is no way that the UFC is going to be able to deny Max Holloway a title shot, regardless if Volkanovski is able to retain his title. All right, I think many fans want to see the trilogy, even though Holloway ended up losing twice. The second fight was a lot closer than the first one, and I actually had Holloway winning the second fight. But like they say, you can't leave it to the judges. You leave it to the judges, it's out of your control, and the judges can see things, in their eyes, right, and say, hey, this fighter won, even though technically this fighter should have won, right? So that's what's at stake, right? I think Max Holloway is in a similar situation with that Robert Whittaker is at. Robert Whittaker, obviously we all know that he's the number one contender, right? He should be fighting for the title. But the fact that he ended up saying to Adesanya that, hey, I'm not ready to fight this early, totally different circumstances, but similar situations. That's why I'm bringing up Robert Whittaker and Max Holloway. Similar situations, different circumstances. Okay, Yair hasn't been active. Like I said, he beats Holloway, pulls up that upset. He can possibly, shoot himself into a number one contender fight, or just getting the title shot after the Ortega versus Volkanovski fight. So there's a lot of stuff at stake. I know I didn't mention it, but the week after Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, there's also going to be the Corey Sanhegan TJ Dillashaw fight, right? A lot of stuff is at stake at that fight because of the fact that now we know what Rob Font ended up doing against Cody Garbrandt. Utilized the jab, was a better boxer, right? I know Cody should have definitely in that fight, use more of his takedowns. I don't think he knew what he was exactly trying to do, considering that Cody does have some type of wrestling background. I would love to see him do that, but Rob Font ended up winning that fight over Cody Garbrandt. So now, next is TJ Dillashaw versus Corey Sanhegan. Sanhegan coming off of an insane knockout over Frankie Edgar earlier in the year. TJ Dillashaw hasn't fought since January 2019 when he ended up losing a title shot to Henry Cejudo. That's when Dillashaw was jumping down to weight to flyweight to potentially try to be a double champ. And lots at stake because look, Corey Sanhegan, he was this close from getting a title shot, right? Lost to Aljamain Sterling at UFC 250, right? Was inches away from getting a title. He was this close from getting a title shot because of the fact that Dana White had said Aljo versus Corey Sanhegan is going to be a number one contender fight. Aljo ended up submitting Sanhegan inside of a minute and a half or something like that. And then he has to go back to where he was at. Ended up fighting Marlon Moraes, ended up fighting Frankie Edgar, puts himself back into competition, into fighting, for a number one contender spot, which he's going to be fighting TJ Dillashaw. Dillashaw, on the other hand, he was busted for EPO. He was busted, and he ended up having to relinquish his title for bantamweight. Never lost the title. Felt like he deserved, to get back into the picture. But you know what? Because of the circumstances that ended up happening at UFC 259 with Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, brings us to the fact that Dillashaw, is going to fight his former training partner in Corey Sanhegan. And if Dillashaw is able to get past Corey Sanhegan, then he's going to be able to contend for a title. Barring that, the whole situation with with Sterling and his injured neck. All right. Personally, I really do want to see an interim title fight. I'm actually a fan of interim title fights, but if they're only marketed properly, right? And if they're only used for the right circumstances, not just to have, a headliner because you don't have any of the champions to put it at a pay-per-view because you burnt out all your champions, in too many 3 title pay-per-view cards. I think this is a perfect time for a bantamweight interim title. I think that the winner of Dillashaw versus Sanhegan should fight Peter Yan if and only if Aljamain Sterling is not able to return during the timeline that he said that he was going to be able to return, which is October through December, right? And if it happens to be on that November card, historically the UFC likes to go to MSG, Madison Square Garden in New York, to go have their pay-per-view at the Garden, right? And what do you know? The champ is from Long Island. He is from New York. That would be an excellent way to have his fight there. But if he's not able to, fight, by the end of the year, you got to put an interim title, all right? Because the neck injury is too sensitive. I don't personally think, I don't think that Aljo is going to be able to come back. And if he does come back, he's going to be a lesser version of himself. And then lastly, not lastly, I still got 2 fights to talk about. Nico Price versus Michelle Pieta. Michelle Pieta versus Nico Price. Honestly, this is going to be a fan favorite. All right. You saw what Nico Price ended up doing with Donald Cerrone. That was a fun fight. Michelle Pieta. Last time we saw him, he fought Chaos Williams, and we weren't seeing the dancing, the backflips, and all that type of stuff. I think he was being a little more serious. I know when he ended up fighting TJ McConnell or teaching, Connolly, or I can't remember his name. He also had neck surgery too. He was doing a whole bunch of backflips and stuff like that. Very, very interested in that fight. I think it's going to be very entertaining. I could see Michelle Pieta trying to smack Nico Price, and Nico Price being, laughing about it, and then him trying to do like some type of Superman punch. Very excited for that fight. Honestly, Dana White hit a home run on this on making this match because of the fact that this is going to be on the Conor McGregor card. You definitely want to have these 2 fighters, have so much of a large audience watching them, just due to the fact that, hey, they're very entertaining. And if you're going to have a lot of people tuning in to watch Conor McGregor, why don't you have these 2 on a pay-per-view so many fans can see? Because you know what? If they notice that how fun and exciting these 2 fans are, then they're going to be wanting to tune into a fight card when they're included on a card. All right. And then lastly, Kevin Lee versus Sean Brady. That is also going to be on July 10th. All right. Personally, I think this is a very scary matchup for Kevin Lee. I know he wants to go up to welterweight. I'm thinking he's tired of cutting down to 155. I know it's a very dreadful cut for him. But Kevin Lee going to 170, and his first fight at 170 is going to be Sean Brady. Not a real big fan of that because of the fact that Sean Brady, even though he is not highly ranked, I believe he's inside of the top 15, he's pretty dangerous, right? He is as dangerous as they come in that's somebody that's ranked, all right? He has excellent ground game. He knows how to control top position. All right. Kevin Lee, after a long layoff, last time we saw him, he fought Charles Oliveira on that Brazil card. And I'm a little worried of the fact that him going to a fight with Sean Brady. Sean Brady has power. Sean Brady has excellent, wrestling. All right. I don't see him coming out really doing really well against Sean Brady. But hey, anything can happen. This is the fight game. I'm very looking forward to seeing whenever Kevin Lee fights. Kevin Lee is very entertaining. Last time he ended up having a victory was on that Madison Square Garden card in November 2019. When he ended up head kicking Gregor Gillespie, and he ended up defeating Gregor Gillespie in front of his hometown in New York. So yeah, guys, a lot's coming up in the next couple weeks. We got the July 10th card, the International Fight Week. We also have a pay-per-view right before that. We also have, Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori. That's in about 2 weeks. That's also going to have Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. That's also going to have Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. A lot of fun fights on that card. And then the July 10th card is obviously Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor. Gilbert Burns versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You also, like I said, the Sean Brady Kevin Lee fight. Week after that, Max Holloway versus Yair Rodriguez, and then the week after that, Corey Sanhegan versus TJ Dillashaw. This is madness for MMA. This is madness for UFC. I can't wait. Very excited to see this. No UFC this week, but if not, come back to this channel if you want more UFC content, all right, MMA content. So then, I'm Flavo Rihanna, and thank you for tuning in to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. And please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.